Hello and welcome back to part three of Britney Spears' saga. I am Jamie Hanshaw and this is Rachel Wilson and this is Out of This World and this is our third and final installment about the one and only Britney Spears. And I hope you've been keeping up so far because Rachel is back with some more great sleuthing, some conspiracy digging. She's been up all night chain smoking and watching conspiracy videos. No, I'm just kidding. She's done great. And she's got a lot of stuff about something called Project Rose, which we are going to get into in a second. But I wanted to start out talking about Hollywood is popping off this week. There are so many weird stories. Number one is the tragedy with Anne Heche. Did you hear about that one?
Yes, that one is very bizarre.
It is.
There's some really weird conspiracy theories about that one already.
Yeah. I'm thinking of, do you remember the Star Whackers? This guy, I can't, oh, it was Randy Quaid.
Oh, yeah.
And many years ago, he was talking about the phenomenon of people dying in Hollywood when they get too close to things or they are a liability or whatever, they get star whacked. And he had a whole list of people who
That's right.
Were killed. And maybe Anne Heche is one of these people because the story, like all of these stories, it just gets so bizarre because she's fleeing something and she goes into a wig shop and she gets a red wig and the guy says she is normal in her right mind and everything, but she was in a hurry and she just needed this wig really fast. So she goes to buy the wig and she leaves and her car malfunctions, the brakes didn't work, or I mean you can hear screeching and a crash. So she crashed into somebody's house. There was a fire, the fire department comes, and the footage is showing them taking her out on a stretcher. But as they're pushing the stretcher, it starts to unzip and she's trying to climb out of it.
Yeah.
Right? So they have her in a bag, like as if she was already gone.
Deceased, yes.
And all of a sudden, she's climbing out of it. She's trying to get away. They push her back in, zip her back up, throw her in the truck. And Greg Reese did a really good in-depth detailed report for AJ this week about that. So I recommend just looking that up on band.video to get the full like soundbite of this whole weird story. But apparently she had been trying to get the word out about HUMAN Traffico.
Well, that's going to connect a lot to, I mean, that's mainly what I've got today. So
yeah,
that connects a lot. And I mean, she's kind of famous. I mean, she had some movie roles in the 90s. In fact, I just was rewatching Donnie Brasco with Andy over the weekend, and she's in that.
Mm-hmm.
So she had some good movie roles in the 90s, but most people remember her for being Ellen DeGeneres' partner for a little while. And if you ever get into the Ellen spider web, there's a lot of connections there. So that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, people who revolve around Ellen or like the Clintons or THANKS.
Yes. Or Harpo.
Uh-huh. So these are people to watch out for. And another crazy thing came out this week. Nickelodeon actress Jeanette McCurdy, who wrote a book called I'm Glad My Mother Is Dead. And I ordered that book because I want to, go through it. Maybe there's some stuff like what we've been talking about with Britney, maybe some MK Ultra abuse going on there.
It sure sounds like it's very much like a whistleblower
book.
Book.
According to this article, it says Nickelodeon actress blows the whistle. Hollywood elites R-word children. So that's pretty cut and dry right there. It says former child star for Nickelodeon has blown the whistle. How children are routinely drugged and R-worded by Hollywood execs and forced to engage in horrific schmeck acts with PEDOs in order to further their careers. And she had this one story about her and Ariana Grande.
Yes.
Where
I read that.
Ariana Grande went to THANKS's house and came back, and she was awarded more clout in her roles, and it furthered
Yes.
her career. So apparently, this guy who is pretty much at the top A-list in Hollywood is giving charades parties at his house for young Hollywood.
Charades, like,
Yes.
just when I heard charades, I was like, I don't think it's charades. You
No.
know what I mean? Like,
Yes. It's
maybe we'll call it that from now on when we're talking about stuff to avoid the algorithm. We'll just say they were playing charades with kids.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. So this made me think of, we talk about Eyes Wide Shut a lot, but that is such a archetypal movie of like what actually goes on behind the scenes. And it's so weird that a lot of us couldn't even process what's happening just because it's so bizarre and satanic.
Yeah.
Um, but this reminded me of how to, Isaac, um, his last name rhymes with happy. Do you remember that guy?
Okay. Yes.
Who was unalived.
Mhm.
His story, I think it was like 2018 or some back in there. So he was like, come at me. Hollywood is PEDOs. It's full of PEDOs, and I'm going to prove it to you. And he had what he called the kill switch, which was like something that was going to be released if something ever happened to him.
Yeah, like a dead man switch.
A dead man switch, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So he basically dared people to come at him, and they did. I mean, he fell off a bridge into traffic in LA.
Yeah.
Uh, and then after that, something did come out. It was some footage of it looked like a bathhouse, like a tile mosaic bathhouse, and it was all little children serving in the bathhouse, and it was just like super creepy.
I didn't actually see the footage. I do remember him saying all that stuff and
Mhm.
him not being alive, but
Yeah,
I didn't see the footage. I'll have to look that one up.
yeah. So look up Isaac rhymes with happy with a K.
Yep.
um, and what was released after he died because it's super creepy. And it goes into what we are going to be talking about with Britney. So last week we left off, it was about 2013 in her career. And it was about the time where she is going to get a residency concert in Las Vegas. And Vegas and Britney had always had this relationship. I mean, I remember back when her career was at its peak and she was very young, she would go to Vegas and party a lot at the Palms. Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That was like her place.
A lot of LA people do that
Mm-hmm.
because it's Sin City and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and all of the like LA elite people go to Vegas to party. And don't forget that Vegas has been run by the mob pretty much since it
Exactly.
started. So
That's the
you could,
connection there. The mob
yeah.
connections and the legalities of different professions
Yes.
in Vegas are more lax than they are in other places. So
Yes. I lived in Nevada for 5 years. So you do get to know a little bit about like the Harry Reid cabal and like the things that go on there. Like Nevada politics is crazy. It's like it's a rabbit hole of its own. But yeah, that stuff's, I mean, I used to do makeup for Bunny Ranch girls and Burning Man people and stuff like that. So I've heard some things. I've
crazy.
heard some stuff.
Speaking of Bunny Ranch, I've been watching TikToks by Holly Madison and those girls who used to date Hugh Hefner.
I used to watch those reality shows back then.
I do, of course, VH1, and like I watched everything on VH1 and MTV. But
Me
the
too.
stories that they're coming out with are super gross, and like this is not a lifestyle that anyone needs to aspire to for any reason.
No, they make it look so glamorous, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's how it, at least it was. I feel like it's not anymore now that Hugh is gone.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was still alive and they were, remember the Playboy Bunny brand just being huge in like the 90s and the early 2000s? Like
Yeah.
you could go to like a random tanning parlor and they'd have like little Playboy Bunny silhouette stickers that you could like put on yourself so you'd have like a little bunny silhouette on you. And there was like girls from my high school getting those
I
back
remember
then.
that was so popular, the bunny tattoo on your lower back.
Yep.
And then you would get those juicy sweatpants sets, velour, and it says juicy right across.
Yes, right on the bum.
And then you've got your Playboy bunny, and you're just all ready to be exploited.
Yeah.
Just like
But
Britney.
but it's cool.
Mm.
Super
And,
cool.
oh, and I noticed the bunny coming back. So this is
Yeah.
because millennial, like turn of the century stuff is coming back in style.
Yes. Yes. I have a 21 and 19-year-old, and everything from like when right around the time I graduated high school, they think is super cool.
Yeah.
And they want to dress just like I did when I was like their age, which is really weird to me. Like the flare-legged pants and the chunky shoes and the little butterfly hair clips and all that stuff is coming back. The little chokers,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
I'm gonna pass on bell bottoms this time just because I think they look goofy looking. I did wear them back then, but not this time.
I did too, but they don't do anything for me. They don't.
No. You have to be very like stick thin, and that's coming back, and people are getting super mad. Like, do you remember? This is such a tangent, but Nicole Richie and Lindsay Lohan, like they would go out just looking like skeletons, like
Yes.
literal
Actual like skeletons.
0% body fat, like are you okay type body.
Yeah.
And this is what we were supposed to aspire to back in 2000, and this is coming back in style. Like, please don't let this happen again. Like,
yeah.
No more.
Well, it's not happening to me, you guys. Sorry. That's never gonna happen to me.
So Britney, one of the saddest things about her life, I feel like, is that, and it's summed up in this one song called Work Bitch.
Yeah. When you go back now and listen to the lyrics to that song, it's like,
now in the context of her conservatorship and everything, and just how they keep making her work even though she doesn't want to, and they use her children as motivation.
like collateral. Like if you don't work, you don't get visitation.
Right.
To the extent that you're not making money for us and working is the extent that you don't get visitation.
And this is something that a lot of people do not understand about the cabal and the Illuminati, or whatever you want to call it, the Black Brotherhood, or what. It is a business.
Yes.
And it's a money-making thing, and you are required to make money for your higher ups. And
it's a giant pyramid scheme.
It is. It's like the pyramid scheme because they worship pyramids and goofy stuff.
True.
It's the first pyramid scheme. And if you are not producing for your like satanic masters, you're worthless and you're going to get punished, or you're just going to get eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So here Britney is working like a dog. And then one thing, all of the people she's ever dated is just so, none of them, I believe, ever cared about her.
Doesn't seem like it.
And there's one called Jason Trawick, who was partners with her dad in the conservatorship, right? There was a guy named Dave who they called Normal Guy Dave.
Oh, I don't know about Normal Guy Dave.
Yeah. But he cheated apparently, and then she came out at one of her concerts and was like, yeah, I got cheated on. And then there was some guy named Charlie. Like, there was just all these random people that did not fit with her at all. And I feel like they use her partner to control her, just like this other guy, Sam.
Yes, 100%.
Her new beau, new husband. I always feel like they're on Team Con.
Yeah.
Not Team Britney.
And well, I watched some like media interviews with Sam when we started doing all this, and he's very like, first of all, I feel like the interviews, they pick them and stage them for sure, because the questions they ask this guy are like, you would have thought he wrote them or his PR group wrote them, because it's always like softball question, and then please tell us about how you're not using Britney to further your career. And please tell us about how you're making your own money and how you got this huge movie role with who is it? Bruce Willis? No, not Bruce Willis. One of the big action stars. Tell us how you got these huge movie roles and this big TV role and it totally had nothing to do with the fact that you're with Britney. And he's like, oh, I'll be happy to tell you about that. It's just it's so contrived that it's hard to listen to without just like eye rolling the whole time.
Yeah, it's really transparent, I feel
Yeah,
like.
I feel like it is too. And the whole wedding was very transparent, which we already talked about. There was like a video montage of their wedding day that was posted. And I'm looking at it because, again, sorry to always be bringing up, doing hair and makeup, but learned a lot doing that stuff
Yeah.
because you observe people all the time. And
Mhm.
I did tons of hair and makeup for weddings and weddings for very wealthy people. I have never seen a wedding where the bride was that much of an afterthought. Her hair wasn't even done. She didn't have any makeup on. Her makeup wasn't done. Meanwhile, like he's literally got makeup on. I
Mhm.
know when a guy has makeup on, like on film, even if it's really, really subtle, I can always tell that.
Mhm.
And it's like they had him all dolled up. He had on like bronzer and powder and this and that. And she's looking like they rolled her out of bed, stuffed her in a dress, and put a veil on her head. It's the most weird thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a bride where they were like, okay, bring her out and stick the veil on her head and just tell her to walk down this aisle. It's so weird. It looks like she didn't even brush her hair or anything for her own wedding.
Right. And she had no portraits made of her, just of him.
Yeah,
And
super weird.
the guest list, I feel like none of those people, like Hollywood is so weird because everybody is just super fake and super
Yeah.
hypergamous, and just everyone is there for exposure and for a come up. And I know that's like cliche, but it must be so lonely to be there in that industry. Um, what was I going to say about oh, and so Selena Gomez, Brittany said, Selena kept saying, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy. I just want to be, and she said that to me 3 times. And my mom used to say that. And I'm like, this sounds like a hypnotic thing.
It does.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it
Yep.
sound like something that an abuser would say?
Yeah. Because well, in some of the MK Ultra research I've done, they used hypnotic audio tracks
Mm-hmm.
on people where it would just repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And that's actually very effective conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
It's used in all kinds of clinical therapies and different things now, and it all came out of this. But yeah, it sounds totally to me like it was a phony wedding, and then they invited these stars who are handlers who kept repeating certain things or doing certain things. And the Madonna kissing thing, she keeps like in her Instagram lately, she mentions that all the time. In
Mm.
fact, when we get to Project Rose, I'm going to talk about a quote where she made reference to that in reference to Project Rose. So really weird. And also the entire wedding, roses
Mm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everywhere. Not like, oh, well, it's a wedding. Of course there's roses. No, like entire carriage covered in roses,
Mm-hmm.
entire ceiling covered in roses, whole entire backdrop covered in roses, giant balcony completely covered in roses. And I was just like, that's a lot of
Do you
roses.
remember that movie American Beauty?
Yes. Yep. I
The
sure
theme of
do.
that was PEDO stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And yes. And when
And
I was researching this, I found that the San Diego State University did one of the people there who was doing like a PhD program. Her and the team she was researching with found that they could track human TRAFFers on social media and the internet by the emojis that they use, and that the red rose or the little red rosette are the main ones they use
okay.
to denote human TRAFF stuff.
Mm.
So, and I guess that's because it's been a symbol of that for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like brand new to the internet. Apparently, that's been a thing for a long time.
I was gonna look up roses in Springmeyer book, but I forgot. But anybody out there, I'm sure you can do it easily and find out. It's got to be something significant. Right.
Yeah. Well, I did find a bunch of stuff saying that they thought it perhaps came out of Rosicrucianism or Rosy Cross or things like that, and that
Okay.
in Crowley's system, the Rosy Cross had a lot to do with that sort of stuff, with PEDO
That
type
makes so
things.
much sense.
Yeah, so it could have come out of that perhaps as a way for, these people like drug traffickers as well, like anybody who's black market trafficking anything, arms, drugs, KIDS, things like that. They have to speak in code and they have to find a way around, you know,
Mm-hmm.
around things legally. And now they have to find a way around the algorithm. And so this is one way to do that. And the amount of Instagram posts that Britney makes with 3 red roses on it is like dozens and dozens since 2019. So it's been for 3 years now. And it wasn't before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because from what I can tell, that's when she started to get some control of her Instagram. It's very hard. Like, there's certain things about this that we obviously have to speculate on because we don't have any way of completely verifying them, but you can
Yeah.
kind of put
I
things
just want to
together.
say the caveat, like all of this stuff is just like you said, we're speculating. We're not
Yeah,
accusing anybody. We don't have
right.
any proof or facts. It's just
No.
circumstantial.
Yeah, and if we had proof or facts of something illegal, we wouldn't be here telling you about it. We'd be
No.
telling cops about it or something like that. So this is just us trying to put together the weirdness that's out there because this stuff is out on social media everywhere. It's out in the public eye. So we're just looking at it and trying to figure out what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk. Let's do this. Let's talk about the music video first called Break the Ice because this is really weird. Did you watch that one, the cartoon one I
Yes.
sent
Yeah,
you?
you sent me that and I had never seen that one before.
And not a lot of people have. So this is what year was that? 2008. So this is an animated video where she appears to enact some kind of revenge on her handlers. And I really like the song actually. I think it's cool.
I kind of liked it too, which is shocking to me because I'm not like a huge pop person. Britney does have a few songs I like, but
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've never heard this song. I've never seen this video,
Mm-hmm.
but it was really interesting.
So her character crashes this like eyes wide shut type Illuminati party, and it's got all of the classic symbolism. It's got the checkerboard floor. They've got the mask on. It's at a mansion. It's a highbrow, elitist environment, right?
Yeah.
And so she finds a clone lab under the mansion where hundreds of Britneys are kept in liquid tanks.
Yes.
And she battles men in black and blows up the lab. And she finds her handler to be a robotic businessman in a dark office. And she delivers him a kiss of death, just like in a couple other videos, like
Yeah.
Toxic, right?
Yeah. The clone stuff, the assassin stuff, the poison stuff, the cages, like there's just so many things that repeat over and over because she's got a 20 something year career at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nice to be able to look at and see these patterns in messaging repeated all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
And at the end of the video, it says to be continued. So this is like a story that does not have an end.
Yeah.
And then in 2011, we talked about Femme Fatale last time, and she had a video called Hold It Against Me, which was directed by Jonas Ackerland, who also directed Lady Gaga and Beyonce video about mass murder called Telephone. Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh yeah, I remember that one because when that came out and I saw it, I was like, there's some stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Like you could tell from that video, like they were already deep into some crazy symbolism in that one. Because
Yeah.
Lady Gaga was newer at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a couple years into her stuff, which just continues to get weirder. But yeah, that was like another one with a prison and They're
she
like,
breaks out of prison or
yeah,
gets out of prison, and Beyonce picks her up, and they have these weird conversations in the interludes during the song that wouldn't make sense if you
yeah,
didn't know about mind control. I mean, they're talking about and you can um, see the mirror, but there's always going to be a crack in it or something like that. Do you
yeah.
remember that?
I don't remember all the different dialogue, but it was like very, it was, you definitely got the idea that there was stuff going on that you weren't supposed to know, but it was kind of inferred. And you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't, the thing I remember about watching that is like you couldn't tell if they were supposed to be the good guys or the bad guys really in it.
And we're back from some technical difficulties, but we're fine now. And we were talking about Telephone, the video with Lady Gaga and Beyonce. And one of the lyrics in that was, "You're not going to reach my telephone. No matter how hard you try to call, you're not going to reach me." So even the lyrics in that have mind control themes in them, because
Yeah.
maybe your telephone would be like your core personality or something like that. Do you agree?
Yeah. Or it could be, I mean,
Okay, we're back. And I think we've got it. Say hello, Rachel.
hello.
Okay, we're talking about telephone, talking about break the ice. We're going to talk about one more called I Want to Go. Did you watch that one?
Yes. Is
Okay, so
that's the one with the guy from Half Baked, right? The screw you, you're cool, that guy.
yeah,
And he's like, isn't he kind of the, is he a handler in the video or is he like her
yeah,
ally or like what is he?
I
I
think
couldn't
so.
quite, I couldn't tell.
Did you ever watch that show Weeds?
Yeah,
So he was in that show too. He was like
yeah,
Guillermo from Weeds.
yeah,
And he okay, it starts out Britney is at a press conference where she declares she's pregnant with Brad Pitt's quintuplets.
yeah.
Okay.
Because somebody says, "Oh, you're pregnant with Brad Pitt's baby," and she's like, "That's incorrect. It's like quintuplets or something."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so during the video, she like sexually harasses a fan, she seduces a baby, she flashes a cop in front of a child, and she gets searched slash molested by a cop. She then slaughters the paparazzi with a microphone, only to find that they are programmed robots like Terminator,
yep.
right?
And then she runs away with that guy that we were just
Guillermo,
talking about.
yeah.
Yes.
And so she's rescued by him. And well, I mean, he loves what? Convertibles, dancing girls, and 2% milk.
Yeah.
Do you remember he's like pouring milk
Yeah.
on himself?
So weird. I
Yeah.
was just watching it going, I don't know what's happening.
I know. It's like a fever dream or something.
Yeah.
So at the end of this video, she wakes up from the dissociation, and once again, she's back at the press conference. So all of this happened in her mind.
Yes. And the guy turns out to be a robot too at the end. Like she
Yes.
thinks that he's like not one of the bad people or whatever, and they run off together.
Yes.
And then he turns out to be one just like everybody else right before she wakes up.
Mm-hmm. And it's so weird because he goes to the podium and he stands up there with Britney and he says, "No more questions" to the press. And Britney turns to him and said, "I had the strangest dream."
Yeah.
And he replies, "I love dreams and seashells," and gives Britney a handful of seashells and leads her away. So this is so bizarre. I had to look it up. And if you look up seashells in the Fritz Springmeier book, it says the vow of silence is a keep quiet program activated by the walls have ears and the plants have eyes, so your silence is tantamount to success. This is explained to the victim that the seashells and plants have the ability to hear, and that a sensitive occultist or programmer can psychically pick up what the plants and seashells hear. So it's some sort of silent switch, the seashell
Whoa, dude.
programming. Isn't that weird? Because
That's
she's in
insane.
a press conference.
There's no way. I'm sorry. There's no way that's a coincidence. That would be
No.
way too weird.
Right?
Way too weird to be a coincidence. Holy
Right.
moly. I didn't know that.
So then in the end, the Guillermo character turns away from Britney to deliver like a maniacal laugh and reveal that he is actually a programmed robotic demon handler.
Yeah.
At the end, it's like, wah, ha, 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 we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So
Gosh.
it's like she's almost come full circle from, innocence in the beginning to victimization to realization and rebellion with the shaving the head. And this video clearly illustrates that she is still ultimately under the control of her handlers.
Yeah.
And then one last thing I wanted to say about the video, Hold It Against Me. Uh, it shows her like floating in a wedding dress with all of these tubes plugged into her that go to like televisions and stuff.
Yeah.
And her eyes have two pupils in them, or two irises with two pupils. Like maybe that could be multiple personalities to
Yeah.
reference.
Yeah.
So just super weird stuff. And then one video you showed me that was recent also had a Eyes Wide Shut theme. Slumber Party?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And that is where she met her new husband, is on the
Oh,
set of that
really?
video. Yeah. He's the guy at the head of the Eyes Wide Shut table, party dinner table thing in
Uh-huh.
that video. And they both say that that's how they met, is he
Oh.
was chosen for that video.
Uh-huh. Okay, well that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So, and that video was just, it's just depressing, man. I mean, you're a 40-year-old woman. You can do something else.
I know. Well, apparently she can't do something else.
I believe in you that you can
But
produce art that is not, overtly sexual.
that song in itself is just like gross. And it is another, this is a consistent theme with her, is overtly over the top sexual, but also lots of references to like little girl stuff, little things like what does she say? It smells like candy lotion or something. And there's just like lots of little references to things that, and it's slumber party, right? Who has slumber parties?
Mm-hmm.
Girls, little girls,
Mm-hmm.
10-year-old girls, 12-year-old girls have slumber parties. And it's just always, it's always like super sexual, but like cutesy little girl stuff with over the top, like sexy stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the baby voice comes in, because like if you guys, there's more than one video of this now, I think, but on her Instagram, she records herself singing like her own version of Baby One More Time, totally different,
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of cool. And her voice, she does sound a lot like Christina Aguilera, which is what I've always heard, is that they were both coming out at the same time at the beginning of their career, and they wanted to differentiate them, and they decided to make Britney into this little baby, sex kitten baby person
Mm-hmm.
with the little high pitched voice. And I know since the conservatorship has ended, she said that she wants to sing with her real voice at some point if she decides to work again, because right now she doesn't want to, because she's been being forced to for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not thinking about that. But I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to figure out in part in this, is like, yeah, legally the conservatorship is ended, but does that mean that she's actually not under someone's control anymore? Because a lot
Right.
of times it still doesn't seem like that. So
Right. So I did watch two documentaries. One was called Britney for the Record. This one was in 2008. I'm just trying to go in chronological order, and we're going to get to Project Rose real fast. But this was on the eve of the 2000 VMAs, so that's the one where she got all of that flack for it.
yeah.
And the 60 days after. So just some things that I noticed about her personality, and I know they're not going to put anything too crazy in a documentary.
Yeah. And that one, if I remember correctly, is the one that she said there was a lot of stuff that wasn't true or wasn't correct. And it was very like mainstream, right?
Yeah,
Like for the most part.
pretty much. But this is the one where she like cries and says I'm sad and that people don't understand what's happening to her. And even if she tells them, they don't believe her.
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed, she's constantly biting her nails. That is like an anxiety thing.
For
Um,
sure.
she says she let bad people into her life. She can't go out in public in the paparazzi. I mean, literally, she just tries to go to a store just to go shopping like a normal person. And she can't even get out of the car because
It,
they're thronging her and she just has to get right back in and leave. I mean, it's crazy. They talk about getting her a double just so she can do things.
and I have wondered, like, again, with doing makeup and things like that, and then I used to be a portrait artist when I was younger. I really noticed like every little detail about people's face to the point that it's like probably a little bit weird. There's just times in the last few years here since this stuff started getting more crazy and all the free Britney stuff started. I'm not the only person who noticed that her teeth are different. There's been a lot of people who've noticed that, but there's other things. And it's not just like, I know what aging does to your face. I know how it can change your face, but there'll be video clips of her that I was trying to like put in order where it's like, okay, she has the perfectly straight white teeth again that she had when she was younger now, but then
Mhm.
she won't, and then she does. And there's certain times where her face looks different, her eyes look a little different, her brows are different. And I'm like, is it makeup? Is it angles? Is she tired?
The
But
Instagram Britney looks off.
yeah, it doesn't look right to me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And sometimes you'll see an actor that you haven't seen in a while or something and they look different, but you can definitely tell it's still them.
Mhm.
But this, it's like, I'm not sure, but how would you prove it? And it's
I
just
mean,
very weird.
a lot of people get doubles. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the Middle East and stuff. There's this
Yeah.
thing called the Devil's Double.
Yeah.
You have to watch that because it just shows you like all of these people have maybe even more than one.
Yeah. Do you remember the Sacha Baron Cohen movie that came out where he was like I think it was supposed to be him being like an East African, like, you couldn't tell. It's like with all his characters where it's like, is he Moroccan? Is he Iranian? Is he Arabian? Like, is he African? You couldn't quite tell, but he was basically like an amalgamation of all of those dictators from those type of countries.
Hmm.
And like he would just everybody all the time for like nothing, just for looking at him wrong.
Yeah.
And they actually tried to kill him and make his double the real prince or king or whatever it is, and the whole movie is about that. But he's got like a bunch of them.
Yeah. And so apparently Saddam Hussein and those kind of people
Yeah.
had like so many doubles, and all of these heads of states have, doubles to the point where in the movie they had a scene where it was some kind of official meeting and it was all the doubles meeting discussing policies and making laws and like getting things done. So it wasn't even the actual people. It was really funny. But so she says, people hear me, but they're not listening to what I'm telling them.
Yeah, I've
And she
seen that
says,
clip. It's so sad.
this is worse than jail because at least you know when you're getting out,
Yeah.
when you go to jail. They said, do you think your life is out of control? And she says, no, I think it's too in control. I think the people are always on me, controlling everything I do, and I have no agency of my own. Madonna shows up in this. She does a little concert with her. She's very angry about being taken advantage of. But this is an early one. This is like 2008. So this is
Yeah.
a long time ago. She says her dream or her paradise is to have my kids on an island and a man, and nobody can get to us.
Yeah.
Right. And then at the end, she says, I'll have a good, mysterious book one day. And then I just watched this little MTV documentary. It was just about 20 minutes long, 2014, about I Am the Femme Fatale. And this is so weird. So she goes to work in the studio with will.i.am, and he's showing her pictures of concept cars that he's working on, like not Teslas, but that level of.
Yeah.
Um, and he flashes her a badge to show that he works at Intel Computers.
What?
Yeah.
This is a documentary. This is not
Yeah.
another fever dream video.
No, this is I Am the Femme Fatale 2014 for MTV. And the other guy in the studio says, if your music career doesn't work out, you can always, work at Intel full time. And will.i.am says, He said at this point he would rather work there full time because he gets to work with people making computer chips and new devices. And then he kind of like trails off like it's kind of top secret stuff, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really weird. And this is the one where they show her filming her song "Till the World Ends" in the meat plant that she said smelled like
Yeah.
poop and everything. That was so gross. And I just thought this was interesting. The this little symbol. Do you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
So the femme fatale, like the fatale F
Yeah.
on the official like logo for her thing, it has this cross, like upside down
Yeah,
cross in it. So
does.
I just thought that was really weird. So that was 2014. So about the time she was doing her Vegas residency, which she had to cancel, it was doing so good, but they canceled it because apparently she had to go help take care of her dad.
Is
So
that when he had the medical emergency or was that
yes.
later? Okay.
So this is the weird part. Like he's supposed to be her caretaker and
Yeah.
in charge of all of her things because apparently she's incompetent to do anything for herself.
Right.
But she has to quit her job to take care of her dad now. So that is,
Wouldn't he have plenty of people who could do that?
it's just all of it is super sus. And
Yeah.
then she goes like silent on social media for a long, long time. And then in 2019 is when the surge of the Free Britney started. And so
Yeah.
we're almost up to present day and up to her Instagram and Project Rose and all that. But I wanted to go over real fast her conservatorship testimony
Yes.
that I read the whole thing because you can get it,
Yeah.
right?
I've read it too. It's much longer than like the important chunks that they released.
Yeah. So I went in and I got like what I consider the important chunks.
Yes.
And so this
Because
is
what you and I would probably think are the important chunks are not what the media would put out, right?
right.
Yeah.
So you can find this one on vulture.com. It's been a 13-year case, longer than that now.
Yeah.
And they said you didn't listen last time. She says I was forced to tour in 2018. Um, she couldn't say no to dance moves, and they had meetings without her. So it's just more work, bitch.
Yeah.
She can't even be creative now in this
Right.
process. She says the same lady comes over every morning for the last 8 years and administers her medication.
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. And that we'll probably never know because when they were doing a big investigation into what that was, the guy who was prescribing it magically passed away.
Right. What was his name again?
Dr. Timothy Benson.
Timothy Benson. So she says therapists and handlers are all communicating and put her on lithium for no reason.
Yeah.
So everybody is in on it against her, trying to keep her subdued. She says 6 nurses kept her locked at home for a month and the dad approved it all. A lady came over for 4 hours a day for 2 weeks to do psych tests on her.
Yes.
She failed and wanted her to go to a rehab in Beverly Hills for $60,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right?
First of all, there's no such thing as psych tests that last 4 hours a day every day for 2 weeks. That is not a thing.
I know. What could you even be learning about somebody? Like
you wouldn't. There's no way that would be like an APA approved process.
yeah. She says that her dad loves when she cries. That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
She worked 7 days a week and staff was with her 24/7, including security, chefs, managers, assistants. She couldn't even be alone to change her clothes.
Yeah. She
Right?
couldn't shower. Like people would have watched her shower,
Mm-hmm.
apparently, and change.
She says she gave 8 gallons of blood a week. Okay, so that's impossible. She might mean like 8 pints, but still, that's a lot. I mean, but that's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
Right?
What? How did I miss that? She gave blood every week?
Yeah. In her mind, it's 8 gallons, but it's probably maybe like 8 vials.
Like little tubes. Yeah, vials.
Yeah.
Now, if you are, this is something I do know because I was caretaker for somebody who was on lithium, and it can be very toxic if you get too much of it built up in your system. And you do have to have periodic blood draws to keep track of levels, but not every week.
Mm.
I've never heard of it being every week, every month, but not, but if they're giving her that with other things, or if they had her on a high dose, if you're on high dose lithium, then yes, you might need to do drawings like every week to make, because it can kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It's very dangerous. It can permanently like mentally retard you. It's pretty
It can be
dangerous
like
stuff.
a lobotomy kind of,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And there's another thing about mental health, mental patients, and somebody confirmed this for me last week. Slowboy Whiteboard. I had heard.
Shout out Slowboy Whiteboard.
I had heard before that mental patients take their clothes off a lot. So one thing that is so associated with mental illness is public nudity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so weird, considering like all of the people wanting to take their clothes off in public now, and just the culture the way it is, that, you know, this is mental illness trying to be naked in public, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've talked many times about how all of my daughters are constantly trying to talk all of their friends out of starting an OnlyFans.
Yeah.
It's like their part-time job. They call me all the time, be like, Mom, my friend so-and-so was going to try to start an OnlyFans, and I sat there for 3 hours and talked her out of it and explained all the reasons why it was a horrible idea.
Yeah, good. So Brittany says she works 70 hours a week, and it's a lie when she says she's okay and happy.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. She can't sleep. She's depressed, angry. She cries every day. She blames the court and the state of California for letting her dad do this to her. She's been put in the Bridges facility, and she is punished for saying no to things.
Yeah. The Bridges facility is, now I was listening to the last couple episodes we did. Didn't even know this, but Jay, Sam Tripoli, Chrissy Mayer, and Isaac Weishaupt did in 2020. They did a episode of Tinfoil Hat where they were talking about Bridges and how it's like, it sounded like it was basically like a bottom of the barrel Medicare, Medicaid type of a facility that you go to if you're like coming off Skid Row. It's not the place it's not like these $60,000 a month. So like, why are they sending her to some place like that? And then some place like Promises, and then places where it's 60 grand a month, and then sending her to the Caribbean. Like, how many different places? And if you needed to be treated repeatedly, why wouldn't you go to the same place where the staff there was familiar, where they have your records? Like,
right.
Especially when at this point she barely leaves her house unless she's performing.
Well, she says that her lawyer says if she tells the truth about the rehab place, will sue her. And this made me think of, do you remember that little vignette that Lady Gaga made? It was called like Prelude Pantique or something like that, where she's being wheeled on a gurney through a medical facility, and she's describing what it's like to disassociate and make things better than they are. So this is kind of her dream as she's in a mental hospital. The nurses are fashionable, and they have like cute outfits, and it's just like her imagination to fill in the gaps of like horrible things that are happening to her. I recommend that everybody look up that little thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will have to watch that.
Yeah, it's weird. So she's forced to go see talking about Britney. She's forced to go see therapists in public so the paparazzi can get photos of her when she's upset. So they send her to see these doctors like right in the middle of downtown. Like, why couldn't you send them to her house? I mean, if she's a fragile patient.
Yeah, and if you've got nurses coming there anyway,
yeah,
and chefs and everybody else is there all the time, why? And the therapist is there to test her for 4 hours a day, but you're going to send her out in public to do that? That makes no sense.
Where they can all snap their pictures when she's leaving and been crying for however long, you know?
Yeah.
So then she said her therapist, Jody, denied her all beauty and hygiene treatments during 2020 because of COVID, and told her everything is closed. but the staff had their hair and nails done. So they're using COVID as a excuse to keep her locked down and telling her that all the shops are closed and she has to, isolate when they can all go get their hair and nails done.
I'm really trying to figure out what this is about, where why, if she's your little cash cow, would you want, like, because again, if you look at her now, if that's her on Instagram, she's got like forehead wrinkles. And not that I think there's anything wrong with this stuff. I'm not into the giant fish lips, Botox, whatever that everyone else is doing. But like Paris Hilton's face is absolutely frozen. You know, like most of these girls have tons of work being done. You see like Millie Bobby Brown getting plastic surgery at like 13.
Is she a teenager?
Yeah, they're already filling her face with fillers. She's had cheeks, she's had lips, she's had her chin, she's had tons of stuff done. But Britney, who's 40, they're telling her she can't get her hair done. Her teeth, like either whatever she had dentally came out. Like,
I mean, if you had braces as a kid, your teeth can still move around. And
yeah,
you might need to
mine
get
did.
a cleaner or something again.
Yeah.
So that maybe could have happened.
But like, why would you want her to still work and do these Vegas shows and tour, but you're not going to keep her up like that? You know, do you know what I mean? Like every other star on planet Earth.
I think it's part of the humiliation and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah. And I think they want her to look crazy to people. I think they want the public image to be like, yes, go to Vegas and see all her shows and everything, but also she's like super crazy and unstable, and which also doesn't make sense. That's like another, like, it's a very weird psyop. Like, I'm trying to figure out what the psyop is with this stuff, and I just don't understand why promote her, why continue to put her out there and make her work and try to make her financially lucrative, but then also like let her teeth go, let her hair go, let her skin go, like have her be walking around with mascara under her eyes like she hasn't washed her face in 3 days but is wearing makeup. It's really weird, and I haven't figured out what that's all about, other than that maybe they just want to humiliate and embarrass her and make her look crazy.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's part of the humiliation ritual. And they put her on birth control against her will.
Yes, she has an IUD.
Yeah.
That's almost like how they used to sterilize mental patients.
Right. So she wanted that out, and she wanted to be able to, this is a couple years ago, but she wanted her birth control out. She wanted to be able to marry and have another baby. And then there was another girl named Amber Tamblyn.
Yeah, I know who she is.
What was she on?
She used to be on General Hospital. She was a child star on General Hospital. And then she married a kind of famous guy, and then she was on some other bigger like primetime dramas and stuff like that. I can't remember which ones, but she's got a lot of weird connections to weird stuff.
She said she identifies with Britney's buzz breakdown. She had been acting since she was 10. She felt like everyone's ATM.
Yeah.
She was talking about Britney, and her dad called her a racehorse.
Yeah.
So that is so sad.
Yeah.
Just what the legal system can do. And then we get to her Instagram and the Free Britney and the attention that all of this conservatorship is getting now and for the past maybe year or so. And we're coming to Project Rose, which is something you sent me, which is a series of pictures taken in 2019 and 2021. And Britney said that Project Rose is inspired by Beyonce and Carrie Bradshaw, which is the character from Sex and the City.
Yeah.
Right? So Britney wears these rose crowns. And she said that she learned when she was meditating, she could smell roses when angels were trying to communicate with her. So this is what Britney thinks roses mean. And then if you look at Project Rose, it says an arrest alternative for victims of sex, TRAFF, and prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
And in her court testimony in 2021, she compared her conservatorship that forced her to work and perform against her will to sex trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
she says it right there. Like,
Yes, she says
I
it.
am a victim of this. And then ROSE is code, they say, for reaching out on sexual exploitation. So now
Yes.
fans are convinced that Britney is reaching out in code on social media because she's giving these weird fashion shows.
Yeah.
She, like you said, she looks different on Instagram.
Yep.
They ask her, what is your favorite Disney movie? Which I think is a trigger. And she said Frozen, which I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they're like, if you need help, wear yellow. And she did. So they're always like, if you're reaching out to us, then do this thing. And she does it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like fueling the conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
right? So what did you find about Project Rose?
Well, again, we have to wonder how much of her social media she's truly in control of,
Mm-hmm.
what the potential psyops might be here. But all I can do is try to find what I can find. And boy, I found some weird stuff, you guys. So again, I don't know. Like, I'm not in Britney's head. I don't even know if Britney's in Britney's head half the time. So we don't know what it means to her, like specifically. I don't know if anybody does, but there's an Instagram post she made about this. It was like one of the first posts she made. And she said, wow, since it's such a kind world, I will say the Rose Project. And then she made a little rose emoji. And she said, did stick. So she said, I will say the Rose Project did stick, and I will tell you why. Do you think things happen for a reason or by chance? The Rose Project, my Rose Project, made me a believer. I have the original Rose. Yes, the one that kissed Madonna and the one who has social anxiety. Psst, wearing white for new beginnings. So to me, it sounds like she's the Rose, because
Okay.
she said I have the original Rose. Yes, the one that kissed Madonna and the one who has social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she also says the Rose Project did stick, and I will tell you why. Do you think things happen for a reason or by chance? So it's a lot of her posts are so cryptic and so strange that it's really hard to know what to make of them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I tried to search for anything I could find that I thought this might relate to, because there's a ton of different theories out there, like on all the different fan boards and all the different, Reddits and stuff about Britney. Like the prevailing theories that she was referring to her new attorney that they allowed her to hire, named Matthew Rosengart, that
Mm-hmm.
it's referring to him. I'm almost positive that's not it. Number one, because he wasn't hired until July of 2021, and she started the Rose Project posting in 2019, way before he was around.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I'm not totally sure she hired Matthew Rosengart herself. He's connected to a lot of stuff that makes me think he was selected for her. And like, what are we supposed to believe, that Britney just like Googled attorneys in LA, or like maybe she got a reference from a friend, but everyone around her is compromised? Like, I couldn't think of a way that she would pick him herself and have him be like a good person to have around. I figured it's probably someone chose him, or she asked someone who she trusts, who she shouldn't trust, and they recommended him, or something like that. He has worked for the U.S. Department of Justice under Janet Reno. He's done a lot of high profile celebrity cases for people like Winona Ryder, Steven Spielberg, Sean Penn, another Madonna connection. Steven Spielberg is a Drew Barrymore connection. He's also the attorney for Facebook now.
Okay.
Facebook hired him right after he did the Britney trial, but he had done some work for them, for Verizon before. So he worked directly under Janet Reno as a trial attorney. He worked on campaign finance task force under her. And he's also an adjunct professor of law at my favorite, Fordham University Law School. If you guys read my Substack, you'll know how much I love Fordham and why. So I'm not sure he's this, like, the Free Britney fans really think he's like this angelic figure and this savior, and I kind of don't. So I don't think it's referring to him. But when you do look up Rose Project, if you do enough searching, I came up with at least 3 major organizations. One you already kind of referred to, which is the Rose Project. That's the alternative to prostitution, where this is a project out of Arizona State University. And it started in 2011. Yeah, 2011. And it's so all of these are going to be named Rose Project, and they have like similar acronyms. And I feel like all these organizations and foundations have silly acronyms.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they pick them for something else and then try to make them make sense. So it's like reaching out on sexual exploitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's this professor who they have a program where they arrest people who are out hooking, and they tell them that they can avoid arrest and prosecution by, if they qualify, by doing this program where they have to go through all this counseling and all this other stuff rather than be arrested. There's been a ton of people saying this is a very suspicious program, that there's a lot of things wrong with it, that it violates due process and people's rights. In fact, they had to cancel they used to do these sting operations, and they have to cancel them because there was a lot of people like suing them for the stuff they were doing. So they would like round up these people, not arrest them, kind of illegally detain them, because if you don't know to say, am I being detained and all that stuff, you would just go with it. They would handcuff them and take them to a church, and they would get like scared straight by cops and priests who would say, you have to complete this program if you don't want to get arrested. And so they would have to do 36 hours of mandatory training through Catholic Charities. It's like a classroom thing they had to complete. And so this project is run by Professor Dominique Rose Sepowitz. Yeah, Roe-Sepowitz, but it sounds like Rose Sepowitz.
Yeah.
Rose. Anyway, she is friends with Cindy McCain. And yeah, she's friends with Cindy McCain and another very elite lady you guys may not have heard of, but you should know about, whose name is Swanee Hunt. And we're going to get into her just a little bit because she's she's something else. And so this Project Rose collaborates with Cindy McCain is the CEO of the McCain Foundation now.
Mm-hmm.
And they are big into human trafficking stuff, and they consult with the government on it. So the McCain Institute has a whole advisory panel that works with the government on this issue. And so this Project Rose works with them. Now, who is on this advisory board from the McCain Institute that's going to save us all from human TRAFF? Well, we've got Cindy McCain, who's the chairman emeritus of the McCain Institute board on this issue. And we also have Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild on this board. She is married to Sir Evelyn Robert de Rothschild. She's a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton. She's also on the board of Estee Lauder, which I got a lot to say about Estee Lauder, but we'll save that for another time. And she's also on the board of a bunch of other companies she shouldn't be on the board of, like the Economist Group, Gulfstream Aerospace. Now, what the heck Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild knows about aerospace engineering, I don't know, but she's on their board for some reason. This is another thing you find. All these elites are on boards for things that you're like, really? And a bunch of other kind of sus stuff. She also served on Bill Clinton's National Infrastructure Advisory Council from 93 to 95. So another big Clinton connection there. There's also people on this board like John McCain's son, Jack, and General David Petraeus, who is another guy that's like very deep state. I mean, like, he's like a deep state poster boy. So these are the people running the advisory board that's going to save all the children from this issue, right?
It's just like do you remember in Haiti, the Clintons would save kids from hate, but
they all disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, that's connected to this too, because the lady I just mentioned so there's this woman named Swanee Hunt, and she's an oil heiress. She comes from a family that is like descended from Texas oil barons. and they're super mega rich. There's a bunch of them. You don't hear about them that often, but they're kind of everywhere, and they got their hands in every cookie jar.
Mm-hmm.
And she, you guys, if you want to see like a portrait of a absolutely pretentious narcissistic elite, go to her website, swaneehunt.org, because she's got this giant thing you can scroll through where she just tells you about how fabulous she is and all her accomplishments and how wonderful she is and how she's literally like saving the world.
Well, that's
It's hard to scroll through without laughing, but how she ends up involved in all this, she's networked in so hard through multiple avenues. So she's got this thing called CEASE. Again, we have to have all these acronyms.
mm-hmm.
So she founded something called CEASE, which is Cities Empowered Against Sexual Exploitation. And they're in every city in the country, and now they're in cities around the world. So this global elite lady who literally campaigned for Hillary Clinton, and I have a quote from her saying, she was waiting for years and had been planning, spending, and waiting for years to put Hillary in the White House. And she was also Bill Clinton's ambassador to Austria for 4 years. So and Bill Clinton wrote the foreword to one of her books because she writes ridiculous books. But he wrote a foreword to it. So she's like real close with the Clintons, like good friends, major campaign donor, served for Clinton in his administration, and she is going to also save the children, you guys. So she's got her people in every city. Dang. to help the children.
Well, that's a huge network. So if they have so many networks for saving kids in every city, why is the traffico going up and up?
Yeah, it's been going up and up. And during the pandemic we saw the biggest spike in that we've ever seen, conveniently.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We haven't even gotten to the other organizations, and there's just so many of them, and they're everywhere. And they've got, so this woman, the Arizona State Program, Project Rose, got a $1.24 million grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And they partner with CEASE and with the McCain Institute. And not only that, but this lady, Swanee Hunt, also has an organization. Oh, what's it called? Women Moving Millions. And the board of directors of Women Moving Millions is unbelievable. And this is yet another, it's always, we advocate for women, we're going to help women and girls. This is every foundation I've looked into, from Bill and Melinda Gates to the McCain organization, all these different organizations. They're all going to help women and girls. And how do they help women and girls? By giving them stabbies, by sterilizing them, by giving them birth control, and by giving them abobos. That's how we help women and girls. And then in with all that, somehow we're going to save them from trafficking. And this board includes all kinds of crazy people, lots more global elites. But even more interestingly, it includes her sister, Helen LaKelly Hunt. Now, Helen LaKelly Hunt has a really bizarre relationship counseling program she developed with her husband, Harville Hendricks. If you guys have heard of Harville Hendricks, if that name might ring a bell to you, it might be because he's been on Oprah 17 times. And he's one of her gurus, one of her love gurus, relationship gurus.
It's almost like you have this pyramid of villains, you know?
Yeah.
Or like a flow chart, and they're all connected to,
I actually have, I have a couple pages that I've made like a villain flow chart, because you will keep seeing the same names over and over, and they're all connected, and they all do all their work through foundations, and then they get government grants, and then somehow they're tied in with the Department of Defense, and then they're also getting knighted by the Queen, and it's the same thing over and over.
They use these people in their campaigns, like I'm thinking of THANKS. When COVID happened, he was one of the first ones to get the
poster boy.
And he's like
posting. And he was also the first one to supposedly get the virus. Remember that? It was like he and his wife were quarantined, and it was like, oh my gosh, are they going to DIE? Like,
and
America's sweethearts have it.
there's this picture of him in a blue t-shirt, and every time he like wants to promote something, he just changes what's on the t-shirt, but it's the same Instagram picture. Have you seen that?
There's so many bizarre pictures of him, of Mr.
Oh, yeah.
of Thanks. We could call him Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks.
And
So
then
Thanks
there was that
is
whole
everywhere.
WAYFAIR
Mm-hmm.
thing where
With
he
the
would
cabinets.
take photos of gloves. Like one of his hobbies was to find missing gloves and take photos of them. Like if he sees a random glove lying in the street, he'll take a picture of it and put it on Instagram.
That's not weird at all.
No. And then so they found one of his glove pictures had these like letters in chalk on it, drawn like on the street,
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't even know how they figure this out, but they plug it into, and it's connected to Wayfair somehow. And if you put this code in to the Wayfair thing, then pictures of kids pop up.
Yeah. And do you remember right when the lockdowns happened, there was a big internet conspiracy that was debunked, supposedly, of those Wayfair cabinets that would be like $8,000 or $12,000 or something. And people said it was code for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, this guy is tied in with that whole crew, and so are these elite oil heiress sisters who run these foundations. And Mr. Hendricks has a PhD in psychology. This is another thing, they all have psychology degrees. Why do you think that is? And here's another really weird thing. They get a psychology degree. It's always a PhD. I don't know how all these people are brilliant geniuses. Must just be the good genetics, right? They got those magical elite genes, the elite bloodline genes. So they're all a bunch of doctors of psychology, and they all have theology degrees. This whole family.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
whole
and they're
bizarre
all
family has
philanthropists
theology
too.
degrees.
So
Huh?
they're all philanthropists too. They all
Yes,
have
all
their charities.
philanthropists.
Yeah.
They're going to save the world and tell you about your spirituality and also psychoanalyze you to pieces.
Yeah.
So
here's
this guy got
real
his.
fast.
Yeah.
Hold on. That's what I.
Oh yeah.
Of Tom Hanks. So he just kind of switches what he's talking about or
That's really weird. I don't.
yeah, don't come after me, I'm trying to help you.
Reminds me of the Walmart lady. Remember the viral Walmart lady? It was like, I'm trying to help you, Emmer Effer.
No,
Do you remember that lady?
I don't want to be capied, man. I want to like I'm trying to help.
Well, this guy who's been on Oprah 17 times got a PhD in psychology and religion from Divinity School at the University of Chicago, the Rockefeller University of Chicago. And they have, so this couple, Mr. Harville Hendricks and his wife, Helen LaKelly Hunt, they have a couple of really interesting kids. I sent you a video for one of them who has a YouTube channel. This person's name is Hunter Ravanna Hunt Hendricks.
Yeah.
And this is a trans woman.
I'm not even going to try the pronouns on this person. Like,
yeah, this person, you and I would say he was assigned male at birth, and now has she, her pronouns. Okay, so this is a trans person, and they founded the metal band Liturgy, of all things. Yeah. And this person does theology videos on transcendental Kabbalah.
I watched one of their videos.
Isn't it like the most insane thing you've ever seen? Like it was crazy.
The religious aspect of it too, just the fact that he's calling it liturgy, and was it supposed to be like Catholic or Kabbalah themed?
Yeah, he says that it's Kabbalah, transcendental Kabbalah is what he calls his system, her system. This person calls their system transcendental Kabbalah. Their other child is plugged into all kinds of giant megacorps and was an Occupy activist.
Okay.
So they have this, they have Cease, which has traffic stuff in every city, pretty much every major city. They've got this Women Moving Millions, which has like, they got a giant endowment from somewhere, millions of dollars.
Keep talking. I'm going to grab a book just real fast. Okay. I can still hear you.
I'll give you guys kind of the highlights of who's on this board of this organization, Women Moving Millions. It's not only Swanee and Helen, but it's Chris Grum, who is a woman Lutheran leader who lives in Geneva, and is plugged in with the World Economic Forum people. She was also on the board of Planned Parenthood. So I don't know how you're a woman Lutheran minister and you're also on the board of Planned Parenthood, but that comes out a lot. That comes up a lot too. Jackie Zener from Goldman Sachs, Abigail Disney, which we've talked about Disney quite a bit in this Britney series. Abigail Disney is the granddaughter of Roy, who is Walt's brother that he founded Disney Company with. So yeah, Abigail Disney is on the board. She came out of Yale, Stanford. She works with the UN and the World Economic Forum. So that's 2 World Economic Forum people on here. Kim Agnew, related to Spiro Agnew, runs the Agnew Family Foundation. She works for Population Services International, which is a Depop organization run by the Gates Foundation. Of course, she is going to also stop the TRAFF stuff. And she's a committed New Age yogi. Yeah, and then we've got Wendy Anderson, who was an Obama alum, worked for the Department of Defense and the Council on Foreign Relations, and an AI company, an AI development company called Spark Cognition. Wendy Applebaum, the richest woman in South Africa, is on this board. Laureen Arbus, who is the daughter of ABC founder Mr. Goldson, and she got an award from Bill Clinton. Let's see, Cinda Collins Arsenault, who her husband owns a weird foundation that cares about sustainability in space. So not only do they do climate change stuff and something called One Earth Future and the Secure World Foundation, but they're also going to help the space climate now. They're going to save us from space garbage. Yeah, and then Cecilia Boone, who was on the board of Planned Parenthood and Annie's List, which is like a feminist organization that gets women elected to government. Harvard, there's multiple people on this board who are on the Harvard Kennedy Board of Public Policy, and Jennifer Buffett. So that is where they got the big money. They got $1 billion from Warren Buffett because Jennifer Buffett is his daughter-in-law.
See, this is what happens when you give your money to charity.
Yeah, it goes to these people.
Yeah.
And these are the people who are going to save the kids, you guys.
And this is what we were talking about last week with the False Memory Syndrome Foundation.
Yes. Yeah, it's just, this stuff is just like that. It's like the people who are always suspected of doing the thing are going to save you from the thing. So that's kind of tied in there. I know this is a lot. Again, I'm going to write this all up and put it on Substack because it just sounds like I can see people's eyes probably just rolling back in their head. And they're like, what? But there's 2 more Rose organizations that I need to mention. One is, they're both from the UK, and these are a big deal because if there is any type of symbolism going on with the Britney Rose Project stuff, all the things I found just happen to be tied in with child sex, TRAFF stuff, okay? This next one is called the Rose Project, and it comes from a charity organization in the UK called the Magdalene Group. Now this one, their Rose stands for reaching out on sexual exploitation as well, but they don't seem to have obvious connections to the one in Arizona State, unless they just don't mention it. But they have been doing this stuff for even longer. And they have a really bizarre list of patrons who financially support them. One is the Bishop of East Anglia, Alan Hopes, who is a Catholic bishop, he was the Bishop of East Anglia when there was a bunch of Catholic priest scandals, and he had to come out and make public statements being like, it's the same rigmarole they always do, which we're so sorry, we clearly failed, we're going to totally fix it, we're going to have an investigation, and we're going to fix this stuff, and we're super sorry. So he's a patron of this organization, gives them money. And the other one is Bishop Graham Usher, who is an Anglican bishop for the Church of England. He is in charge of the Human Tissue Authority for the British government. And this is an organization that is in charge of organ donation, there's a giant black market concerning those sort of things, just like with trafficking.
Yeah.
So he's in
Vampires,
charge.
man.
Yeah, even with like bodies in hospitals, with scientific preservation of anything that has to do with what they might do with human tissues, this guy is in charge of it, and he's the bishop of the Anglican Church.
That is so weird.
It's a government appointed position. He was appointed by the Secretary of Health over there.
I've always been suspicious of like Red Cross and donating your blood because what are they doing with all that blood? Like, there's not that many blood transfusions.
No, and isn't it really weird how there'll be like an earthquake or a tornado or a hurricane, and they're like, we need everyone to donate blood. And I'm like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Is everyone
Haven't you
bleeding?
been collecting enough blood?
Well, first of all, you have blood banks, but second of all,
Yeah.
like in a hurricane, I don't just see people bleeding out everywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's not like in the wake of a hurricane, you've got thousands of people who are going to need blood transfusions, but nobody questions it. Anytime there's a disaster, it could just be like a cholera epidemic. We'll be like, we need blood donations, and everyone just goes and gives their blood. It's very weird.
And they're taking 8 gallons of blood from Britney a week.
Yeah.
Not that much.
Really, but they are taking her blood for something, and that's
Yeah.
weird. So now we get to the third guy, and this was like a big one, you guys. So the other major patron of this UK Rose project that's going to help people who are sexually exploited is retired Constable Simon Bailey. He has received 4 medals from Queen Elizabeth, and he started a little thing called Operation Hydrant. Now, when he was a constable, he would be like the equivalent of like the London chief of police back in 2015. And this was around the time that the Jimmy Savile scandals broke. And it was starting to get reported that he had been doing all this creeper stuff, and it had been covered up for decades, and that they had multiple police officers who were in on it. If you guys haven't watched the Netflix documentary on Jimmy Savile, you should. It's actually pretty good. I feel like they could have gone like way deeper, but they didn't for obvious reasons, because it's really, really like the stuff that guy was doing in hospitals, which again, this person is in charge of human tissue transport and different things in hospitals, and that's where Jimmy Savile liked to volunteer, and he liked to transport bodies back and forth to morgues and all kinds of bizarre stuff.
Well, isn't that the same hospitals where they use tissues for powering the energy of the place?
I guess so. I think they're not supposed to now. Again, it's always like, oh, I'm in charge of this because I'm going to prevent these abuses. I'm going to prevent these bad things. But I'm also always connected to the people who are doing the bad things. So this constable, Simon Bailey, he created Operation Hydrant, which was formed in response to the huge number of complaints in the summer of 2014 in the wake of the Jimmy Savile scandal. Project Hydrant, in only 1 year, identified 1,433. These are some sus numbers if you guys are into conspiracies and you know anything about the numbers. 1,433 suspects from 666 different institutions, including 261 suspects who were considered of public prominence in 1 year alone in the UK. So anytime a complaint of this nature was made, it had to go through this guy. And he got to basically gatekeep these investigations and this research, and then was given an award by the Queen, multiple awards by the Queen, for his service to children. And he is a major patron of this UK Rose project.
Well,
so
you reminded me, and we were talking about this before, but that's kind of like the Stabby protocol. You call that official VAARS.
Yes, the Adverse Events Reporting System.
Right. And that's your only recourse.
Mm-hmm.
And so they control all of the data and the statistics that are coming out. And just like that guy you just mentioned, he is in charge of the reporting of these incidents, right? Mm-hmm. But he's connected to the people that are implicated in doing it.
So they had so when the Savile stuff broke, he wasn't the only guy, obviously.
Yeah, and who was Epstein selling kids to? Nobody?
Right. And we've never gotten those names, right? So what happens when there's a leak in the dam, They send gatekeepers to deal with it, to make sure that it doesn't bust wide open, that the dam doesn't break open, and that everyone doesn't get exposed. They're willing to let some people get exposed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go, oh, he was so bad, he was really bad, but he's gone now, and we took care of the couple of people that were implicated, so everything's safe, just like we were talking about in the last episode. So yeah, that's what this constable was likely doing. And again, these are the people who are in charge of the programs to protect kids. Now there's one more. There's one more in the UK. This one's called the Rose Project. And in this case, the Rose stands for something really similar. Oh, reach out, stop exploitation. So they just take the same dumb thing and like basically reuse it over and over. And this one is really bizarre. It's a project of something called the Anne Craft Trust in the UK. And this is a group that is founded by a woman named Dr. Anne Craft. And she's a pioneer in the field of sex education and sex research concerning extremely disabled people. So it's trigger warning. Sorry if this is like really disturbing. It's very bizarre. I'm not going to get graphic, but it is weird stuff. This woman's whole life's work was advocacy for severely developmentally disabled and mentally impaired people, that they should have sexual autonomy, that they should be taught sexual education, that they should be sexually liberated. That was her belief. And she wrote curriculum, sex education curriculum for severely, not just like, oh, I've got a little autism. We're talking like severely impaired people who are in homes and facilities most of the time. And she wrote a curriculum that's used in the UK in colleges and schools, and to train staff at these facilities on how to give sex ed classes to severely impaired people. And she did studies and things like that. So this Project Rose, reach out and stop exploit, because her thing was, we're going to teach severely impaired people how to be sexually liberated, but also protect them from exploitation. Yeah. So just like we're going to help the women by giving them like bobos and stabbies,
or physically impaired, or both.
Both.
Dude, people have some freaking weird missions in life, I swear.
I know. You have to ask yourself why. Like, you have to ask yourself, like, why does somebody who's so severely impaired that they need help bathing themselves or dressing themselves need to be sexually liberated? Why do they need to be educated on how to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Very strange. But they have this Anne Craft Trust, which is, it's kind of like the Kinsey Institute. It's similar to that, where it's based on some really out there, gross, creepy things. But of course, they make it an academic endeavor, and they go, we're studying it. We're just studying it. So it's fine. So, yeah, don't be grossed out. We're just researching, and we're advocating, and we're going to protect people, you guys. So it's fine. Yeah. Well, they've got this Rose Project, which...
if it's science, it's neutral, right?
Yes. We're just studying.
Mm-hmm.
We're not endorsing or making a moral judgment, but they always do, right? So she ended up making the judgment that these people should be sexually liberated and taught how to, do stuff and things like that. But we're teaching them that so that they don't get exploited. And it's just like, it's very bizarre stuff. Now, this organization, this Rose Project at the Anne Craft Trust, has their main patron is a lovely man named Sir Roger Singleton. Sir Roger Singleton was knighted by the Queen, again, for his service to children, because he was the CEO of England's largest child charity called Barnardo's. For 21 years, this guy was there through like the 80s and the 90s. While he was there, towards the end of his tenure, there were investigations done on this group, this charity, and this is a huge charity. It spends hundreds of millions a year. So I don't even know like how much money they have, but they spend hundreds of millions a year in the UK. It's the biggest one they've got. Everybody there knows what it is. They investigated and found horrible, horrible abuse scandals. It makes the Catholic Church stuff look like not a big deal. This charity in the 50s and 60s in the UK would take homeless kids, kids who were in children's homes, street children, and they would sell them into slavery, labor and sexual.
Mm-hmm.
They would send them overseas to places like Australia, where they would be horrifically abused and sometimes unalived. And this all came out. This was all investigated. It all came out. And this guy just came out and said, again, just like they always do, oh, it's so terrible. We didn't know about it. But they found out they did know about it. So they had records of this abuse that they destroyed so that people couldn't be prosecuted.
I'm thinking this lady that teaches the disabled people and the mentally disabled people, I can't think of a better like demographic to abuse in their mind because those people can't speak up for themselves.
Right.
So they're saying we're teaching them not to get
yeah, we're
MLSTED, but they're doing that to them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's what I think's going on here.
Yeah.
Because the guy who's their main patron was in charge of this huge charity that has hundreds of millions of dollars of money coming in that's connected to the crown, that's connected to the British government, because this guy wasn't only made at night, but he's also in charge of like the Church of England's child charity stuff, and he's the main advisor to the British government on child safety, child safeguarding of adults and children who are at risk for TRAFF. And he ran this organization for 21 years that we know was doing that exact thing. So and he's still there. He's still there doing this stuff.
Yeah. So like 9 times out of 10, I'm thinking of like Breast Cancer Foundation or something. They're probably suppressing actual cures.
Probably. There's been investigations and people have come out and said that, and then it's the same thing that happens with this, where it's like, oh, there is a little abuse going on. We didn't know about it. We're super sorry. We're going to totally do an investigation and fix all the problems. We're very, very sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
So what you're exposing in a really like detailed way is that the charities are doing the abuse that they're supposed to be saving people from. That is
effectively they are a cover for the abuse.
Exactly.
Because it's the last place you'd look. And then on top of it, they get money. They get government grants. They get major donations from private people. Mm-hmm. You can go donate to these places on their website right now. And they're all connected with the church and the government. And so another thing you guys should know is that in connection with these programs is Thorn. Thorn is Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher's organization that develops technology to identify and find missing and trafficked kids. But again, are they doing it for that purpose, or are they doing it to help the people who are doing that? Because what their technology does is
good point.
It will search videos and identify kids and identify CP stuff that's out there on the internet, because you can't, at least they say you can't always catch that stuff. Like those videos get uploaded to porn sites all the time, prawn sites all the time. They get uploaded to any of these video server places, and a lot of times they're up there for a while before they can be taken down. So Thorn creates technology that identifies CP and hopefully the victims in it so that they can be found and rescued. But you could also use that technology to say, hey buddy, they found your video, you might want to move it or take it down. You know what I mean? They could use it for that. So Thorn works with the McCain Institute. And
of course,
let me tell you who Thorn's partners are, guys. I bet you haven't caught on at all to the pattern by now of who we're going to find as Thorn's partners. Well, first of all, they got a $280 million grant from TED, the TED organization, like TED Talks.
Yeah.
280 million. Whoa, dude. That's huge. Their partners are remember, these are the companies who are partnering to save the kids: Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Goldman Sachs, Twitter, Tumblr, Verizon, and Snapchat. And they also partner with McCain Institute and the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which partners with it. So they're all partnered together. They're all connected. They all work together to help the kids. And we're supposed to believe that Google, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, you know, all these people, Snapchat, you guys, do you know how much Snapchat is implicated in this kind of thing? How easy it is to get kid videos on Snapchat and things like that, and how much that kind of technology. So of course they say, oh, we don't want those things on our platform, so we're going to partner with Thorn to stop it. But it hasn't stopped. And people have made the very brilliant observation that if you and I talk about certain things, they'll find us. They have no problem wiping every bit of, you know, medical disinfo, every bit of anything they don't want out there. If you tweet about it, they'll find you. But they can't stop this. It just keeps growing every year. The problem keeps getting worse every year, even though you've got the richest, most powerful people on earth supposedly stopping this.
Yeah.
And it's just growing every year.
Yeah.
So I look at the whole thing, when I zoom back and look at it, I'm like, it looks to me again. Now I'm not accusing. I'm not saying I know. I don't have proof. I'm just saying it's what it looks like it could be to me, that these are gatekeeping organizations, that they are hidden in plain sight, concealing exactly what they say they're stopping, to me, just based on the connections.
It's like, if these are all rogue bad guys, then how many are there? I mean, there was just a bust like this week. Let me see. FBI rescues more than 200 victims in Operation Cross Country.
Yeah.
So how big is this network? Right?
You see these a lot. You see these a lot where they're like, remember when Trump got elected and everybody thought he was going to, remember Trump say QAnon save the kids? Remember that? And they'd be like, look at all the busts. Look, they're busting people here and they're busting people there. I have thoughts about that. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think there's a lot more going on than what you think. And I think that it cannot, first of all, it can't be a coincidence that all these different organizations from different countries around the world, they're all connected, have the same name, and it's all Rose, right? And they're all connected to tip top of academia, right? High level academia, highest levels of government, Department of Defense, global elites, the wealthiest people on earth, people who have billions of dollars and multiple organizations. And the other thing about having tons of foundations, it's very easy to hide and clean funds. If you've got 7, 8 different philanthropic organizations, and they're in every country too. This is the other thing. They're like, oh, we're going to save, not only are we going to save kids in America and the UK, but we're going to go to India and save them, and we're going to go to Haiti. In fact, when you brought up Haiti, was in my notes that Kim Agnew, the head of the Agnew Family Foundation and Population Services International, she's going to save the kids in Haiti. She's got a whole mission in Haiti where they're going to save the kids. You want to depopulate, but you're going to save the kids. This is the other thing. It's like they always want
the dissonance, right?
Yeah. And she works with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to save the kids by giving them stabbies and
so the Thorn thing that you brought up, that reminds me of the Freemasons program, the CHIP program.
Yes. Yeah, you had messaged me or asked me if I remembered that. And I do, because when I had my first daughter, they were always outside grocery stores with that program, telling you why you needed to do that in case your child were, and I almost did it. Like, they almost had me because I was a little more normie. It was just before the big 9 that this was happening, if I remember correctly. And I almost did it. And then for some reason I thought better of it. Thank the Lord. But yeah, it does remind me of that.
I remember when I was small, I got lost in the mall, and they were looking all around for me, and they found me going out the door holding hands with a adult man. And they're like, "Excuse me." He's like, "Oh, I was looking for her parents."
Uh-huh.
And they're like, "Okay, well, we're here." So that was the end of it. But after that, my parents were so like freaked out, like, "We need to get her chipped, like a microchip something." And my dad was like trying to draw up schematics or something for like microchipping children. And I'm like, this is weird, but I can see how parents would want something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And you can see how people would go, and I used to donate to Thorn back in like, oh, this must have been 2012 or something, long time, like when it first started and it first came out, and Ashton Kutcher gave that tearful testimony to Congress. But then of course, like, duh, he's an actor. Why
Mhm.
didn't I think about the fact this guy's a freaking actor, and he's sitting up there, telling this harrowing story of how he went on one of the child saving missions and this and that. And it's like, you guys know about Ashton and Demi, right? We already talked in the other episodes about how they both attended the Kabbalah Center, and they had like polygamous relationships going on while they were married. Like, they were into all kinds of crazy stuff,
Mhm.
those two. But they're also going to save the kids. Yeah. It's just like all these Clinton connected, like global elite connect, like the Rothschilds and the Clintons and Demi and Ashton are going to save the children. I
Yeah.
just don't believe it. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just like really jaded at this point, but I just don't buy it. And the other thing that's weird is Thorn and Rose.
Right. Every rose has its thorn, right?
Yeah, roses have thorns. Like, what? Why are they all named like this?
You mentioned
And then why is Britney continually referencing roses and posting? Oh yeah, did we mention about the rose emojis being a symbol of TRAFF?
no.
So the University of San Diego did, and they had a program where they were looking into coded language that people are using on the internet to say when they were doing these things, these black market activities with kids. And rose emojis mean you have somebody for sale.
Mhm.
And one means they're cheap, two means they're more expensive, three means they're like really expensive. And Britney, the amount of times she posts 3 roses in a row is like dozens and dozens of times. It's like every 5th post she posts 3 roses.
So
And
there's
there's roses in all her different pictures, and she wears tops with roses. She puts roses in her hair, and she talks about Project Rose. And it's like, I can't tell you that she's referring to this. Maybe she is just crazy and she really likes roses and she thinks she's smelling roses and it means angels. That could be. Or it could be that all of this crazy connected stuff has something to do with it. I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide what you think.
her Instagram sometimes, or her TikToks or whatever, she comes out in an outfit and she does a little
She
bob
does
and
the
weave and
same.
a
Yeah.
twirl. And it's almost like what you might see if like a piece of merchandise was on
Yeah.
display.
Yes. It almost, excuse me, it reminds me of when you're playing a video game and you're like building your avatar and they go,
Yes.
and you're changing the outfits and stuff.
Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like. But then there was this fashion show that they just did recently where they had like Nicole Kidman and some other actresses doing this private show for businessmen. And I really think that these women and girls are also expected to be in some kind of high profile prostitution ring.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I can say anymore. I'm just gonna talk.
Well, it kind of fits with what you were talking about with the Amber Heard stuff.
Shows are for blind people.
What shows?
Fashion shows.
Maybe.
Did you just say that?
Not explicitly.
Don't put that.
Okay.
Because you don't have proof of that.
Okay. I don't have proof. I'm just speculating.
Yes, this is all speculation. We don't know.
No.
We're just saying it looks like it could be.
I'm not
It looks like
accusing
it could-
anyone of anything. I have no proof. All I have is just books.
Yep.
But you mentioned Magdalene
Group.
Yes. Magdalene Group. Okay, so I tried to look up Rose in this book right here.
Okay.
And this is like a different copy that I'm not used to. When I first read this book, it was in a big giant yellow binder that was self bound, you know,
Okay.
those ones with the little teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. And it had index and everything, so it probably would have told me what page to look for Rose, but I couldn't find Rose in this book. But I did find when we were talking about Brittany in her first video, the baby one more time, and then we were talking about Kathy O'Brien. It said she said she was given a rosy cross necklace, which would follow her through the rest of her mind-controlled existence. So
Wow.
there's a rosy cross connection, and Magdalene is the whole Holy Blood, Holy Grail story.
Yeah.
You know that, right? So a rose could also mean like the bloodlines, the holy bloodlines that they talk about. And I mean, a flower is the plant's, genitals. So there's that.
Yes.
And you mentioned Rosicrucians.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to him last night because I found this guidebook of San Francisco and San Jose when I went there. We went to the Rosicrucian temple, and it's mostly Egyptian stuff in the museum. But there was this one art, what do you call it, installation display or whatever, that you go through to see God, I think it was. And the end was, it was a mirror, and it was holding a rose. So you're looking at yourself holding a rose.
That's
At
weird.
the Egyptian Rosicrucian Museum. So all these things are running through my head. I can't prove anything. Don't come for me. I'm just trying to help.
Yeah, same. I'm just saying that there's another way to think of these things besides, like, when you go to this foundation's website and read what it says and what they say their mission statement is. I'm just saying, if you were to invert that, there's a different way to look at it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anybody did anything. They are known for their inversions, however.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
And Brittany, it seems like, is still a slave for you.
Yeah. And the posting has definitely not stopped. The posting is as weird and bizarre as ever. Oh, and another really quick thing about Selena Gomez, that connection. She and her mother and another lady have started a project called Wondermind.
Okay.
Wondermind, I mean, just the name Wondermind, if you watch Jamie's show, you probably hear Wondermind and you think, really? Because what are we talking about? We're talking about mind control, right? Wondermind is the brainchild of Selena and her mother, Mandy Teefey. Now, Selena's mom is like something else too.
Here's that picture that her Instagram.
Yeah, isn't that just
right? And she's got like
the rocket and the roses,
a dolly head,
head in her mouth, and then a Grateful Dead. You pointed out as Grateful Dead bears on her. Yeah. And then what is the top? The top almost looks like an orderly, like Scrubs, like mental hospital Scrubs to me, but refashioned as a top. I don't know what is going on in that picture, but it's so weird. And it was on Britney's Instagram, and then she deleted it with the other wedding Selena stuff.
And just real fast about Grateful Dead, if that is a Grateful Dead bear, it looks like one. They're totally like Masonic, CIA connected.
Yes.
They're just
Timothy Leary connected, obviously.
Down this path of counterculture.
Yes.
And ruin your life and sitting in a dead lot listening to bad music and doing drugs.
Yeah.
Like thinking you're like a free man or something.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly. The Grateful Dead is a giant government creation psyop to just distribute LSD to people. I mean, it's like, go to the Grateful Dead festivals and there's still people that do this. It's like making a comeback.
I've heard reports of people who go to Grateful Dead, and at night, if they're walking on the perimeter in the woods, people will just grab them in the woods and stabby them with something and then throw them back out, and they have no idea who or what just happened.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that all those concerts and music festivals with the Dead were just giant lab experiments because they would pass out all the LSD and Lord knows what else.
Yeah.
So Wondermind is the creation of Selena and her mother, Mandy Teefey. Her mother co-produced 13 Reasons Why. Have you ever bothered to watch that show?
Is that about the unaliving?
Yes.
Okay.
It was about the high school girl who unalived herself.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a very graphic scene of that. Like, my older kids watched it and I couldn't even watch it. It was so disturbing to me personally because it has a very graphic unaliving scene in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about like mental health and bullying and all these different things. But she co-produced 13 Reasons Why with Selena, and they created Wondermind together. And oddly, 13 Reasons Why was the subject of a Friends of the Semel Institute Open Mind series. The Semel Institute is it's this research branch of the Resnick UCLA hospital where Britney was locked up.
Mm.
And so, yes, they featured 13 Reasons Why in their Friends of Semel Open Mind series. Just the bizarre stuff keeps coming, you guys. So Mandy is Selena's mom. She had Selena at 16. She says she has bipolar 2. I believe Selena also says that, and they also say that about Britney. Selena told Harper's Bazaar Arabia that her mother used to work for a modeling agency. And if you guys remember me saying, modeling agencies are often connected to child trafficking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Mandy does philanthropy work for the Alliance for Children's Rights and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which we already have said is connected to all these organizations. And Selena has worked with Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams, and Michelle Obama on projects like the Global Citizen Project, which is a total World Economic Forum thing. And this is going to be, Wondermind is supposed to be some kind of app, social media thing where you can share all of your mental illness experiences.
Okay.
And to me, it sounds like it could be like a giant data collection endeavor.
I was just going to say,
perhaps
do their job for them and give them all your details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that what we're seeing, like I've already done a big piece on transformering, people who transformer from one form to another,
Mm-hmm.
from male to female, things like that, and the explosion in that and how it's related to mysterious programs that are out there that I think are connected to this sort of thing. And I think, like, again, giant psyops, and then they want to collect the data and see like how many people are having anxiety, depression, DID, bipolar, how many people are being affected by this, that, or the other, and tell us about your experience and give us all the feedback and tell us who you are and let us track and trace you. And so Wondermind is just, that struck me as weird. And Selena's ties with Britney are very deep. In fact, I did read another Instagram post where Selena Gomez and Miley Cyrus were talking to each other on Instagram. I guess they used to be friends through Disney, of course, because they were doing Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place at the same time. They lost touch for a few years, and I guess Selena DM'd Miley just a blue butterfly emoji. And she said, "You don't have to say anything. That was enough." And they were talking about their mental health struggles. So,
well, mental health and what we're talking about and all of this is something that if you don't understand the trauma-based mind control, then you don't understand pop culture. And this is a microcosm, macrocosm. So Britney is the microcosm, what you can do to one person by implementing all of these torture techniques. The culture is the macrocosm, and you are all participating in this and being affected by it at the same time.
yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So this is why I think mental health is such an issue now, because we are all rats in the rat farm. You know, we're Mickey Mouse in the maze.
Yeah, we're lab mice.
We're lab mice, and they're just doing all of these experiments on us and our minds. And I know it's a lot to process, And when you start to wake up to these things, you're going to go through the stages of grief,
Yeah.
like denial and anger and bargaining
Yep.
and finally acceptance.
Yeah.
So waking up is a grief process, and we're here to try and facilitate that in a easy way, easy to understand, and also give hope that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh yeah, like we have the church to combat these things. We have like I'm a great example personally, not to get like super personal, but I grew up in a situation where I have a very severely mentally ill parent who was into some really bad things. It affected my sister in a really bad way. And like, there's no reason I should be a functional, happy adult with a good marriage and a nice family and doing really well and being happy. But I am. And the reason is because when I was growing up, I had friends who took me to church and they had like stable families that I got to be around. And those things gave me like a lifeline to make sure that well, not to make sure, but it like gave me a way to get out of that like generational trap, and that most of my family hasn't gotten out of. So there's totally hope. And it's not like these people don't win in the end. We already know the end. We know that God wins in the end and that they lose. So in the meantime, it doesn't make this stuff easy to talk about or easy to think about. And I mean, like, even when I'm doing like these deep dives and stuff, like Jamie and I have talked about how when we're doing this research, we even still have weird reactions, like where we'll giggle, like, because you don't know what I'll read something, I'll be like, and Mrs. de Rothschild is going to help General Petraeus save the and I just like, I still giggle because it's just like, of course, what else would I expect at this point? But it's just hard to think that these things are possible, because it makes the world feel like it's a very scary place, and it can be. But you can also create, when we go to the liturgy at church, where heaven is coming down to us in church there. When you grow up and choose to do the right thing and be a good person and live your life a different way, you create like your own little heaven in your home with your spouse and your family. And you can do that. And if you've had like rough things happen to you, like we've had some people in our chat tell us, that they've experienced some of these things on these last couple episodes we've done. And it's like, there's a lot of hope. You can work through it and you can get out of it, and you can have a good, happy life. And you don't have to be defined by trauma that happened to you or bad things that happened to you.
A lot of these people have probably gone through some kind of ritual where they signed a contract or something where they sold their soul.
Yeah.
And I just, want to put it out there that that is not binding at all. That is super, it's not, what's the word? It's ridiculous to think that the devil will own your soul.
Right.
You know,
he can't, unless you, like, if you were to finish out your life believing that he did and serving him on account of that, then yeah, but you can at any point choose to renounce that and serve God instead. And
yes. There is nothing that you have done or any kind of like contract that you've made that can't be broken.
Yeah.
And repented. So I hope you guys enjoyed our Britney trilogy. That was super intense, and I'm so grateful to Rachel for all of her like excellent super research. And this is Britney right there, all of her little incarnations, and we pray for her, and we pray for all these people actually. We are going to be live in Florida on September 3rd, and we are going to be giving another presentation about Jay's new book, Meta Narratives, Philosophy and Symbolism. And so if you are in Florida, we're going to be in Orlando on September 3rd, and you can get those tickets on Eventbrite. And I have been drinking my chocolate all night. And if you guys want some minerals and energy, you can go to chalk.com and put in your code J50 for 50% off of lots of good supplements. She legit, I mean, I couldn't, before I started taking that, if I started reading for more than an hour or two, I would get drowsy and fall asleep.
Really?
But since I've been getting my minerals, like my Irish moss and She Legit from chalk and everything, I can burn through books really fast. So I'm going to be producing a lot more shows and also on Rockfin. And I hope Rachel will come back soon.
I'll come back anytime you want. I love doing these with you. It's really fun to have. It's not very often that you find women who have the Christian worldview and investigate this kind of thing and are willing to talk about it and do such a great job as you do. Like I'm always amazed at all the things that you know and all the little details you know about all this stuff. And you guys should definitely get her book because it's filled with all those amazing little tidbits that you're like, you can't believe it, but it's true, that kind of stuff. So I would love to anytime you want.
Okay. It's such a tiny niche, like Orthodox Christian conspiracy theorist woman. Like,
I know. I think,
what?
are there any more of us?
They're watching.
Put a comment below if you're in the club, you guys. If you're in our little niche of the internet, please put a comment below and share this with all of your friends and see what they think about it. Because even though this stuff is dark, it's good if people are more aware of how things actually are. And there might be people much smarter than me who hear something I said and they go research it and find out something more. You know what I mean? Or somebody who has access to more information than I do. So that would always be good too.
That's what I love about this. What we do is like all of the little internet sleuths that come together like a Voltron or something and make these giant exposés great. I'm thinking of this documentary I watched about, it was called Don't F with Cats.
Have you? Yes, I've seen that one. Yeah. That was super good.
So people on the internet are amazing detectives. Right?
Like they solved whole serial murders.
Yeah.
That was insane.
We can do this, guys. It's us. It's not these big like organizations, you know, police and FBI and all of these departments and these charities. They're not going to save you. Only the Christ can save you, and only like
we can help each other. We can save each other, which is what Christ told us to do. Yeah. We're supposed to help each other. We're supposed to be Christ to each other. So yeah, it's good if we combine our powers.
Yes.
And can kind of, because there's just so much out there that it's hard to put it all together into a picture that makes sense unless you're kind of like sharing what you find with other people who found things, and then you can put it together kind of like we did. Mm-hmm. And it's very fun to do. Like I've had a great time doing this with you because it's just been so interesting. Like I'll find something and then Jamie will find something. I'm like, whoa, dude. And so then we'll like put it together and it'll point us in the right direction, basically. So yeah, it's been very fun.
Yeah. And I've never been proved wrong. Everything I've ever learned was just my own confirmation bias that I'm right on the right track. So
yeah,
it's crazy stuff. But thank you so much for coming, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you soon.